He gets transported to a different world all by himself, where he has to fight monsters and goblins every day to survive. But for him, nothing really changes because even in his old world, Haru was a lonely loser with no friends and a future as dark as a black hole. Nobody ever noticed him since he didn't fit into any of the class groups, which were made up of the nasty delinquents, the school flirts, the gym, the sweaty nerds, and the overly strict good girls. Haru lays his head on his desk again, feeling like there's no place for a dork like him in this world. Suddenly, his classmates start acting dumb as they stare at a golden glowing circle forming in the middle of the classroom. Since Haru is a nerd like the rest of them, he already knows from all the mangas he's read that they're about to be transported to another world. But he's not interested, so he tries to leave by walking out the door. Unfortunately, the door is sealed shut, and no matter how hard he tries, he can't break through. Soon, the magic circle grows and begins to suck all the students in. Haru, having watched too many action movies, quickly jumps into the air duct to escape. But his luck runs out and the magic circle reaches him inside the duct, pulling him into a bright, empty void. Haru looks around, wondering where the heck his entire class is, expecting an ugly king with a super hot daughter to show up, but nothing happens. After a while, he spots an old man running toward him and trying to communicate using sign language for some reason. Strangely enough, Haru manages to understand him. The old man explains that all his classmates were summoned before him, and they were transported to a different world after picking a special skill. Now it's Haru's turn to choose a skill too, but out of 50, 43 have already been taken, so there are no cheat skills left. Realizing he's stuck with a lame skill, Haru's hopes are crushed even more when he sees that even a jellyfish has better options than the ones left for him. Frustrated, he shakes the old man like a maraca, yelling at him to stock better skills or at least learn how to count so he doesn't summon more people than he has skills for. The old man loses his patience and pushes Haru away, telling him that someone like him with the charm of a bowling ball wouldn't survive even with the best skills. So the old man gives Haru all the remaining skills and pushes him down into the new world. When Haru lands, he can't believe his eyes as he finds himself standing in the middle of a huge forest, all alone and scared. Then he notices a pouch on the ground. He picks it up and realizes it has unlimited storage space, which is pretty cool. However, everything inside the pouch is as basic as it gets. Haru does a quick drip check and tries to see his stats, but instead 2 dice appear on the screen. When he rolls them, both show an M. Confused, he wonders if M means minus, so he plays it safe and puts all of his points into his luck stat. To his surprise, M stands for maximum, and now his luck stat is maxed out. He also discovers that since he's such a lonely loser, God has given him a special pity ability that lets him tame wild beasts. After looking around and realizing none of his classmates are nearby, Haru decides to move forward and build his own home, taking inspiration from those YouTube guys who make houses out of mud. Haru starts walking through the forest, feeling uneasy as if a huge monster might jump out at him. To calm his nerves, he takes out a skill item called contact lenses. As soon as he puts them on, he's surprised to find that they let him see the stats of everything around him, which turns out to be a super useful ability. Excited, he continues exploring, finding herbs that can boost his health, and venom mushrooms, and more. With his endless bag, he easily collects as much as he wants, planning to sell them for a big profit later. After rehydrating himself like a pro, Haru keeps walking through the forest and soon discovers an opening to a cave. He prays that there aren't any monsters inside and cautiously enters, hoping to find something useful. The cave quickly turns dark, so he pulls out a lantern and his magic tent, which he sets up, making himself comfortable for the night. By the time night falls, Haru feels even cozier than Bear Grylls. He collects twigs and uses his temperature magic to start a fire, which also helps keep any beasts away. Before going to sleep, Haru checks his stats again and notices that many of his skills have leveled up, but he's too tired to really care, so he dozes off. The next morning, he wakes up with a start, checking his surroundings to make sure everything is still safe. Thankfully, his monster-repelling techniques work perfectly. Feeling hungry, he lights another fire, grabs his pan, and cooks up some mushrooms and beef jerky, like a food YouTuber. The meal turns out great, and he wonders if he could live here as a muscled farmer, but then remembers he doesn't have any protein powder. So he heads out of the cave again to collect more herbs that can help him build muscle. While gathering herbs, he hears some noise behind him. He turns around to find a bunch of dumb goblins digging around. Terrified, Haru hides behind some bushes as the goblins start singing something ridiculous. He grabs his stick, deciding to take action before he gets affected by their nonsense. Haru wonders if his wooden stick will be enough to fight them off, but just to be safe, he puts on some protection. He then charges at the goblins, hitting one square on the head. Something inside him snaps as he starts whacking the poor goblin like it's a piñata, knocking it out cold. The other goblin, now scared, attacks Haru anyway. Luckily for Haru, the goblin's attacks are easy to predict, so he dodges them without much effort. He then smacks the goblin on the head and follows up with a small magic blast to finish it off. After that, he washes his face as the sun begins to set and decides to head back to his cave since he's done enough for the day. Once back, he roasts some mushrooms, feeling like a total hobo, and checks his stats. He's happy to see that several of his abilities have leveled up. But at the same time, he starts worrying about what the goblins might do if they find an old gnome in the cave. He quickly shakes off those scary thoughts, does some quick exercises to warm up, and heads to bed. The next morning, Haru wakes up to find mushrooms for breakfast again, which is starting to get really annoying. He wonders if he can find some meat, but immediately remembers how the vegans in his class would give him grief if he mentioned it. So he gets up, boosts his stats with some magic, and heads out for the day carrying his trusty stick. Soon, he finds an item on the ground, but it turns out to be just another useless mushroom. Frustrated, he tosses it aside and starts looking for meat like an idiot who thinks it grows on trees. After realizing how dumb that is, he decides to focus on his magic skills instead and boosts his stats again. Haru begins running through the forest, and to his surprise, his speed has increased a lot. His body feels lighter, faster, and even his attacks are quicker and stronger. Wanting to test this out, he spots a group of goblins nearby and jumps into the fight. He slaps the first goblin with his stick and knocks the second one on the head. However, this only makes the goblins angry, and one of the bigger ones grabs a club. Haru, not wanting to deal with that, hides behind some bushes and sneaks away. Deciding he's done enough for the day, he heads back to his cave. There, he thinks about everything he accomplished before starting some DIY projects like building an IKEA table. After a few tries, by the next morning, Haru gets pretty good at building things. He manages to put together a stool and a coffee table all by himself. Feeling confident, he decides to improve his security too. Now that he knows how to build stuff, he creates a wooden gate at the entrance of his cave to make sure no one can get in without his permission. That night, Haru goes out hunting for some small animals because he's craving meat. Luckily, he spots a rabbit running through the forest and manages to catch it like a wild cat. He smiles at the thought of having some tasty meat for dinner, but suddenly, he senses other people nearby and goes into alert mode. Looking around to his surprise, he sees a group of delinquents heading his way. Not wanting any trouble, Haru hides behind some bushes and quietly tries to sneak away. But then his instincts kick in, and he quickly uses his special vision ability to see everything around him. To his shock, he spots the class flirts coming from one direction, while the gym bros and creepy nerds are approaching from another side. Haru decides he wants nothing to do with any of them. Then he notices the vegan girls led by the class president heading his way too. He lets the rabbit go and wonders for a moment if he should meet up with the class president since she's been nice to him, and they've known each other since first grade. But he stops himself, reminding himself how great it feels to be his own boss. In the end, he decides that he's going to conquer this new world all on his own. This wraps up the first episode of Loner Life in Another World Recap. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.